Hey, what is going on, you guys? My name is Rayge, and we are back today with a Dev Scourge preparation video and analysis in regards to the two viable teams right now that were being confirmed through Scopely and developers, being the Bionic Avengers and the Wakandans. So I've done this before where I've just taken an analysis of the two teams or multiple teams involved, and we're going to break down in terms of, what the pros and cons of each team are, what's my game plan at the end of the day with the Dev Scourge expected to come next month sometime in December, and as well the recommendations and how this should be able to help assist you in your preparation. So that said, guys, as you can see from the screenshot here, they previously did confirm that, again, the only two teams that are going to be viable for this final and last Legendary Horseman Scourge is the Bionic Avengers, and then later on, I think originally they had Wakandans, then it switched to War Dogs, and now it's actually just still Wakandans, but obviously there have been some additional characters being added in that mixture. So that's it, guys. Similar to my previous videos and analysis, I kind of broke down this on a high-level overview here of the two teams, as well as what they kind of bring to the table from a defensive standpoint, their control, other considerations, as well as their meta and so forth. So I'm going to start with the Bionic Avengers first and move forward into the Wakandans here, just to kind of break it down and show you guys the parallels between the team as well as the differences. So Bionic Avengers specifically, right, they have a lot of minor healing with energy, not really a true healer such as Shuri on the Wakandans, but you can see what's notable and different about this team specifically is that Hulkbuster, he does provide a lot of barrier for damage mitigation. So it's going to be very interesting to see that dynamic where he can soak up quite a bit of damage, and that's very notable, especially if we are up against a heavy enemy team that has a high amount of burst damage, specifically targeting us. They can prevent that, right? The only unfortunate thing with their defensive capability is that they do really lack team healing, strong team heals. It's really just gonna be barriers here, minor healing here. So I mean, if there's a overload of damage, for sure they can wipe out the Bionic Avengers, and that's something to be mindful of. Next up, for the control standpoint, this is where Bionic Avengers are truly going to shine. They generate so much energy even outside of their meta, being the raid teams, which they were originally intended for, which they are absolutely dominating, by the way. But they also have multiple blinds, multiple ability blocks, offense down, slows, as well as generating offense up for each other. So I mean, in terms of buffs and being able to actually have mitigation and negative conditions being strict upon the enemies, they absolutely excel at that. That's what they're really strong in. So you're gonna really feel you're in control when you do have them on your team to be able to kind of really manage the crowd controlling aspect of the enemies. And that's really important for Scourges, because when you're battling wave after wave, it's going to be extremely important to kind of shut down those high priority targets that have very significant abilities that can turn the tide of battle. Other considerations as well as Bionic Avenger specifically, they have synergy of burst damage. They can really set up the stage for an intense amount of damage in a short amount of time, especially with the offense up, and then you combo that up with the chain attacks. It's absolutely detrimental and can completely crush an enemy wave. That said, the Scourges are built upon waves and waves of enemies, so I mean, that could be a good or bad thing depending on if the waves come sooner, right? If you clean up a wave, the next wave can come and they can have all their abilities ready against you. So that's something to keep in mind against that synergy of burst damage. As well, they are a raid team, so they have more ability energy being granted, so they're going to lose some of that benefit, unfortunately, but they still generate a good amount of energy even outside of the raid mode. And then lastly, guys, they are a very slow team. I'll show you in the stats later compared to how the other Scourge teams have done, but because of them being slower, my fear is that if there is a Scourge node that there's high speed enemies that we're up against, such as Baron Zemo, they're absolutely going to crush Bionic Avengers if they can do that against us before we even get our first turn. And that's something we kind of saw with Asgardians a little bit, but with the Asgardians, Thor actually countered with a lot of his passive damage. So I mean, that was one thing that they had going for them even when they weren't a fast enough team. And then as well, just the considerations of why you should be building Bionic Avengers. They are a raid meta team, really intended for the Doom raids. And for Scourges specifically, the consideration here is that because this team generates so much ability energy, it's something we gotta be mindful of, because if you recall, going up higher in Scourges, multiple Scourges can give you extra points against you though, if you generate an ability energy. I think there's a couple Scourges that actually delay your turn, or they inflict some negative conditions on you when you do generate ability energy. Something to be mindful of for this team specifically, because their strength is really generating energy for each other to be able to use their abilities more frequently. So that's something to consider for sure. Overall, a great and powerful synergistic team. Just those considerations that I noted, as well as the lack of team healing and the ability energy may work against us if you have certain Scourges turned on. So just keep that in mind, guys. Next up, Wakandans. Yeah, something very notable with them is that they have that first turn defense up thanks to Shuri. That's something that's not seen in a lot of teams, and having that protection can prevent a lot of damage at the beginning, especially if we're up against a burst enemy team. Additionally, Shuri does have very strong heals as well, and that's next to some other characters on the team as well that can provide healing. So overall, they have sustainability, which is something that Bionic Avengers does lack for sure. Next up for control, Shuri, again, similar to Bionic Avengers, she can grant energy for the team, so that's really notable. It's a short cooldown special ability too, so that's really nice. She can actually frequently use it quite a bit, more than you would think, especially for such a powerful special. They also have a lot of offense down, defense down abilities that can really kind of turn the tide of battle. However, unlike their counterpart Bionic Avengers, they do lack a lot of control. They don't really have as much as the blinds and ability blocks as generously as the Bionic Avengers do. So something to keep in mind, we're not going to be able to kind of control the waves as good, but they have good sustainability. And the other notable consideration here is both the Black Panthers can snowball crazily with their damage and speed the moment you take down enemies. That said, if the wrong enemies are taken down, it can also de-escalate the battle if the momentum is lost. So just keep that in mind. It's really good once the ball gets moving and they can keep bursting damage and keep taking enemies down, but then the moment it stops, it becomes a brick wall, and that's just definitely a strong consideration for sure. Lastly, they're a very, very fast team, so completely opposite from Bionic Avengers. That contrast there, they'll likely get the turn before the enemies, and again, with Shuri having defense up, that's going to be very notable, especially if we're up against a heavy burst enemy team. For the meta, if you're planning to build up the Wakandans, they actually can be involved in both War and Cosmic Crucible, depending on if you go the War Dogs route or the regular Wakandans. And then lastly, for Scourge considerations, they do have lack of cleansing as well, which means for this team specifically, if you guys are planning to bring up like Wakandans, there may be some more RNG involved because of that lack of cleansing versus Bionic Avengers that has control, as well as being able to flip negatives into positives in their advantage. Now, that said, guys, overall, two very, very powerful teams. This is a really difficult Scourge to determine because, unlike the previous Scourges we've noted, there were some more obvious teams that we saw, such as, Web Warriors being in Pestilence. We saw that the Young Avengers were the clear winner for the Famine. So those teams were very obvious. For this one, it's going to be a toss-up in the air. Bionic Avengers and Wakandans, they're both very, very good teams, right? So I even did an analysis breakdown here. So this is the stat table that I like to generate and pull specifically and directly from msf.gg, but let me kind of walk you through what's been done in the previous Scourges. So we have the Young Avengers, we have Web Warriors, and Asgardians, and you can get a sense of, like, these are the three teams that really did excel in the last three Scourges, and you can get a sense of, the overall average health, damage, armor, speed, and then the total averages, so you can really see how powerful these teams need to be to get by. And I kind of just kept them all in the same red star and yellow star rating, so these ratings may or may not be different depending on how high you have them, but this is the average, right? So Young Avengers average 660, and they were definitely a faster than average team, but overall still slower. Compare that to Web Warriors, where they really did dominate in terms of speed, had a lower HP pool. Damage was pretty average, but the overall rating was 635. And then we have the potency of the Asgardians, where they were built very, very strong. However, they were slower in that department, still averaging to that 659, 660. So we're seeing good averages here of that 600 mark, which is really, really good to see. And then next up now, we have the Bionic Avengers here, just to kind of break it down. Health, yeah, it's pretty consistent with the average. They definitely have higher than average damage. Armor is also higher than average. Their speed is pretty comparable to Young Avengers. So I mean, if you thought Young Avengers were slow, these guys are even slower with their speed, but overall their ratings statistically for the Bionic Avengers are really good. 685, that's the highest we've seen out of all the teams we've already kind of previously used. So statistically, these guys are built ready for Scourges. It's really just a matter of can they get their abilities off on time. And next up, I did kind of consolidate more of the Wakandans here overall because of the fact that there's actually 7 of them in total. But if you're planning to bring 5, the top 5 there is the 5 I would recommend. If I was going into the War Scourge, Death Scourge with Wakandans, those would be the 5 that I would use, guys. So that would be Black Panther OG, it would be the new 1MM Black Panther, Shuri, Okoye, and Baku, just because of the synergy, the sustainability and healing. That leaves Killmonger and Nakia at the bottom there, which I probably wouldn't bring in if I were to build this team up. And you can see here their averages for the first 5. Wow, they are very, very good, guys. 706, that's even higher mark than the Bionic Avengers. Damage is also, the HP is higher, their damage is comparable to Bionic. Armor is a little bit lower, but their speed 116, so that's comparable to what we've already seen with the Web Warriors as well. So I mean, overall, statistically, guys, both these teams are ready to go, and they're gifted in the sense that they have their pros and cons. So that reason, if you guys are planning to bring in Wakandans, I wouldn't recommend Killmonger and Nakia just because they don't provide as much synergy, especially in a Scourge setting where we need sustainability and consistency versus the offensive output that's needed for specifically the Wars or Cosmic Crucible, depending, right? But you can see statistically as well, both the Black Panthers really do shine. They are really gifted in terms of what they have with their HP, damage, and as well as armor and speed, and they just bring up all the averages, right? So that's why I would highly recommend those two if you guys are able to unlock. If you're not able to unlock the month-long event right now with the new one and Black Panther, then that's when I would slot in either Killmonger or Nakia as that 5th. Now, guys, that said, those are the 2 analysis of the teams, guys. Statistically, they're good. Pros and cons, control, like I said earlier. But what is the safest choice right now in terms of my action? Well, my game plan right now, I already have all the Bionic Avengers ready to go due to the Doom 2, Doom 3 raids. And now my current game plan is building Shuri, the original Black Panther, and Okoye up. That remains now to be saving. I'm going to be in horde mode, just gathering all my gold resources, T4s, just in case, because to be quite honest, we don't know if this is enough. This might be one of the first Scourges where we might actually need both synergistic teams to actually work together here. It's hard to say because of the fact that both these teams here are very powerful teams. And for that reason, I think the safest course of action is just to be ready and prepared. I think that having both these ready to go, but really having that heavier emphasis on Bionic Avengers makes the most sense because of the value we get from Rayge right now. We don't necessarily need Cosmic Crucible and War because you can still have just a participation and still get points as a result of the other teams and roster that you have. But they're an absolute must right now in Bionic Avengers, especially in the late game, and I use them every single day. Versus the Wakandans, where you may use them optionally depending on if you are involved in War and Cosmic Crucible. So that's why I'm doing the more conservative approach, guys. Black Panther, Shuri, and Okoye are safe choices right now. Save up the rest of the resources. More information in due time, but that's my preemptive analysis. Hopefully that gives you guys some preparation advice too in the meantime. But for sure, I think Bionic Avengers makes the most sense right now from a value standpoint, until we get more information and as the testing comes out and we get more insight to share with you guys. So there you guys have it. Thank you as always. Do let me know what you think in the comments below, but I think that's a safe game plan right now if you do not want to overspend or use any resources. Thank you as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.